Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Rev Rambles On. I'm Pastor Larry Buckland, Suncrest United Methodist Church. We are excited to be here with my friend Mark Markle. How are we doing today, Mark?
I'm doing great, Larry. Looking forward to this, as always.
I always am, too. I look forward to talking with you.
Well, let's begin. This was the fifth week in the series that talked about practices that to understand people we might strongly disagree with. And you covered kindness and compassion and humility and respect. And this week it was love. And it was the verse from St. Matthew that talks about the two greatest commandments, love God and love your neighbor. And I'm going to start with the different kinds of love that you brought up. You know, the Greek has four, which every philosophy student has already heard, but eros, philly, did I get that right? Philia. I missed one. Come on. Agape.
Oh, then there was the Hebrew word that I mentioned, hesed.
Yes. In the first service, you didn't mention agape. In the second, you did.
Oh, sorry about that.
Not sorry. It's just, to me, that's the most significant one.
It is.
It's not dependent on a relationship. It's dependent on a one-to-one basis or a one-to-several basis. It's dependent on one to the world and one to God basis. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
How that works?
Yeah. First of all, of course, the eros love is the attraction. And then the hesed is the steadfast love of God. Philia is sisterly, brotherly love. And agape is unconditional love of God that we can aim for and practice, but the agape love of God is just a love that is hard to put into words, but it is perfect love.
When I went back and did a little research, I looked up the Greek, actually. You know, I was really digging deep, and it looked to me like that was the word that was used in the Greek when these two passages were written.
Yes.
It's an expansive, all-encompassing,
You're right.
Not just focused on somebody within a relationship. I think that's really important in the context of what we were going to talk about. The couple of things with that setting, you said love is active, not passive. You have to work at it. And talk about a little bit about that, you know, in terms of a one-on-one relationship or a one-to-many or a one-to-the world.
When I think one-on-one love, if I say I love you, then it's going to be in a way that I am a participant in that. Let's say that I say, Mark, I love you, but you never hear from me. Do I love you? I might like you.
No, I have people in my life who are just exactly like that, and I think they totally love me.
I hear what you're saying, but active love is in some capacity of how you're doing that. Praying for someone, maybe you're saying that, you're doing that, you're sending them Christmas cards, kind of things like that. And there are people in my life that you're right, that I engage with, that I love, but it doesn't happen as often as it should. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah,
I've
absolutely.
got a cousin. Let's say, for example, I got a cousin in Indiana right now, Heather, and she probably listens. And when I think about our love, it is something that we grew up with as cousins and went to school together. And then for a short amount of time, while I was a pastor at Sabra and Highland churches in Morgantown, her husband Mark was working on his PhD at WVU, and Mark and Heather were in my life those 3 years closer than they'd been in many years. And so we saw each other all the time. Well, now they live in Muncie, Indiana. He's a professor at Ball State. I love Heather. And so here I'm agreeing with you, Mark, is that I don't get to talk to them as much as I should. But when I do think of them, I do something. I send them a message, or I just check in and things like that. So it's not something that I've never, ever going to talk to them again. You know what I'm saying? So if I love someone, that I am going to be some way of a participant throughout my life with them.
I think there's another element to it, and it goes with some of my relatives who I grew up with and actually lived with, several families of my uncles and aunts who I haven't connected with, but I have no hesitancy to call them on occasion.
Yes.
We're going through town. We let them know we're there, and we get together for dinner.
Right.
It may be happening once every 10 years, but when it happens, there's no dissipation of that connection. That
Pick up where you left off.
We pick up where we left off.
That's exactly what I'm saying with my friend Heather, is that when things are happening also in life, my cousin Heather went through some tough times in life and tragedy, her brother who died young. And so we corresponded a lot, during that time and things. So I think it's the love of those people are people that that you can count on in some sort of manner when there's celebrations that you're invited to be a part of, or if there's tragedy or death or a hard time, you're also someone that you would want to be consulted with. So the loving relationship goes beyond that with others as well in the world. How do we show that we love a community? We say, I love our church.
Yeah, I can see that, and it's a kind of a mushy thing for me, to be quite honest about it. The idea of loving the community. I mean, it kind of comes to the concept of purple.
Yeah.
You talked about purple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are a lot of areas that get marked on the map as purple. And I think that's a wrong analogy. That implies there's a homogeneity about it. No, that's not the right word.
I know what you're saying.
There's a mixture. And it may look like that from 20,000 feet, but we don't live at 20,000 feet.
No, we don't.
Live next to each other, in neighborhoods, at work, in social settings. At that level, it isn't purple. It's red and blue.
You're right.
And that is a reality that is hard sometimes, often for me to get past. The idea of the person that is on the other side of whatever it is we have is a child of God, a cog. I really love that term. Is a child of God. A child of God. You got to fix that. A child of God. And yet I have this violent disagreement with them. It's not purple. It's blue and red.
Sure. I get that. I think the whole idea of the purple is that, yes, we realize we are divided. And when you take that color of the country or your community, red and blue make purple. But I agree with you that that's why we're here talking about this, is because of the divide, and that it is red and blue. And how do we then work together in capacities that we can? Now, we all know that there are going to be times that people refuse to work together or can't.
Yeah, and one of those times for me, and it's not a time so much as a situation, is when I start thinking about immigrants,
right,
or LGBT people,
yep,
or people on social services.
Yeah.
And as I look forward in the future, I see those are going to be treated not like I would want them to be. How do I reconcile, or how do they, more importantly, how do we speak to them to say, love this person who's doing this to you?
I do still think we say we've got to love these people. Yes, as hard as that is, that's what Jesus says.
I can do that.
Right.
I can do that.
I know.
But I'm not the one that's getting thrown out of the country.
Agreed. And that's why I think for the message for us in the church, and these messages are for us to live out and be the church, to care for those who are marginalized and to step up for those who can't speak for themselves, to protect the immigrant, and to be able, just as we have here at Suncrest, made a pathway for a home for people, and to continue to love and involve them in this community as not an us and them, as we're all in this together. And then the church has to be the loving community that says to the folks that are worried about pregnancy, and saying, I'm going to be here. I'm the church for you. And that we are going to continue to rally around you and love you in spite of things that divide us.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Please.
And Angela, cut it out if it's too dramatic. What do I do if, troops come in and start taking our family away, the Ukrainians away, because they're not
right?
They're not U.S. citizens. They're not even immigrants.
Yeah.
They're here on a 2-year pass, which may go away.
Right. I'm with you, Mark.
But what do I do?
I think you continue to say that this is wrong. And am I going to stand there in front of you? You can stand in between. Now you may be arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the choices that you make then. And I'm not in disagreement with you at all here, because I've had these thoughts as well. And how do we then, the church, continue to step up and speak what Jesus would say?
If the church does that, what are the consequences to the church, to the congregation? I mean, does it lead to more divisiveness, or is it the right thing to do despite that?
The right thing to do is not easy.
Oh, man, come on. You're right.
The right thing to do is not easy. I mean, yes. The answer is yes. You do what is right. You continue to, what does the scripture say? To defend that, and be there for the immigrant, the orphan, and continue to do that. And the message that this is what I have to carry with me. This is my own mindset in this time, is that regardless of where you are in life, whether it's about politics or whether it's tragedy, and then this idea of the Christian walk, no one ever said it was easy. And the hope in Jesus Christ is because we are always looking to a better day. And in the Old Testament, they all were always saying, "How long, O Lord? How long?" And that might be the cry for a lot today. How long, O Lord? And as we continue to work through that means each day we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to live out this day to the fullest, loving God and loving our neighbor? And our neighbor are the people that still disagree with us and still even do things that we feel are oppressive. That doesn't mean we like their action. And we have to defend against actions that we believe are not following the teachings of Jesus.
Okay. You give me something to think about, Larry.
Oh, you too.
I'm anticipating at some point being put on a line between what I perceive as right and wrong, and I'm not anticipating that with pleasure, but with necessity.
Yeah, there is a right and wrong.
There is, right and wrong. The problem is that I can't, my right and wrong is going to be different than somebody else's. And I have to be comfortable in my right or wrong, in my understanding of my faith as it defines the right or wrong. And somebody else may come up with a different thing that can be quite confrontational, and that's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something I can just slough off.
There's a book that's very helpful for me in things like this, as written by Reverend Adam Hamilton, Seeing Gray in a Black and White World. And in that book, it talks about a lot of issues like this. And to realize that, as we say, there's right and wrong, there is, but it's not just so simple always for it to be black and white.
Okay, I'm going to shift gears a bit here.
Okay.
For me, it's a kind of a distance issue. I'm not an immigrant. I'm not LGBT. I'm not a pregnant woman that needs help. What do we say to the people who are in those situations? How do we support them? How do we open the word of Christ to them in these situations where they're literally being dragged out of their homes or discriminated against or prevented from having needed medical care? What do we say to them? What do we offer them?
First, presence. We can't just talk about it. Sunday morning it's all easy for someone to get up on Sunday morning and preach about it. And that's why preach isn't really the right word. How are you going to be present in their lives in that? Now, that doesn't make it all warm and fuzzy by just being present. They can still be marginalized, or even worse, taken away, or rights refused. But your presence there in the midst of what's the worst thing in life, I believe, is to be alone.
Okay, I can see that. Giving that presence provides support and maybe a bit of comfort. But can we still say to them, love, even in an agape sense?
In an agape sense, as Jesus was on the cross, he said, "Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing."
I hear you, but I still trying to put myself in their position.
I didn't say it was easy.
I think it's impossible.
I don't know if it's impossible. An example, no, this is not the same. The terrible tragedy shooting in Charleston, South Carolina, when they were in church together.
Yeah.
It seems to me impossible that family would say, "I love and forgive for shooting my family." Seems almost impossible for me to be able to come to that terms.
Not almost for me, impossible.
Yeah.
But they did.
They did. And these are all hard things, but the right thing, again, is not always easy. And I can't explain it to you in words, I don't believe, Mark, to be honest with you. But to love God means loving all. And that, we continue to remember people in our past. And I've had people ask me, well, could God forgive the worst of worst? Well, yeah, God could forgive Adolf Hitler, as impossible as that is to even think, because I don't know what the thief on the cross had done.
Yeah, that reminds me of a experience in my life which I had with a very learned theological student, not a theologian, but one who has knowledge and works at understanding. And we were in a conversation once, and I don't know where this came from. You were talking about time travel and what you need to do, and the subject came up, if you could go back in time to 1933 and had the opportunity to kill Hitler, would you do it? And I said, yes, of course. And he said, no, absolutely not. I would work as hard as I could to prevent what was coming or to do but I would not. That's God's place, not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And it set me back a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stuck with me for 30 years now, maybe. It has colored my decision process and at least my intentions.
Mm-hmm. What I think we need to make sure we're able to say here before we get done is that just because you have a hard time loving, it doesn't mean that we're not called to yet. We can definitely hate.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that.
We can definitely hate what the action is and happening. So loving the child of God that has, for whatever reason, they're a child of God, Mark.
And that doesn't belittle our, kind of saying I love the person and hate the action, puts them aside.
I hear what you're saying. I'm saying, though, we can definitely hate what they are doing, and the evil, we can call it what it is, evil.
Yeah, I've heard that phrase, though, and a lot of things that I don't think are evil, but people justify their actions on it.
Well, we don't have to justify actions.
We don't?
No.
At least mine, I have to.
No, we don't have to try to justify someone else's actions.
Okay. All right.
That's what I'm saying.
All right.
No. Yeah. I'm not trying to justify someone doing evil is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But somewhere, some way, that child was born from a mother and a father and was born the same way you and I were.
Sometimes it's hard to keep that in mind, but I think it's something that I have to work at.
Well, me too.
More now than...
It's a lot easier for me to say what I believe, Mark, than to live it out.
Me too.
Okay.
Big time.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm done with the heavy stuff. I got one more question. And you can put it off to after we're not being recorded, but I would really like to know where the best wings in Morgantown are.
Well, a spot that not maybe everyone knows in Suncrest, maybe they do, but it's not far from my house. My favorite wings right now are at Lefty's.
Really?
Yes.
Mine too.
See, we can go to Lefty's, have some wings and a beer, huh?
Seriously. Wow. I didn't think anybody else knew about that little place.
Oh, I love that place. And I had a friend that was doing some video work. I couldn't believe I walked outside and saw my friend Dusty. He was doing some recording work for a neighbor. And I saw him. And after he got done recording, he came out and hung out at my house while he was ordering pizza till it was ready at Lefty's. Yeah. And I told him, I said, Dusty, the pizza's great, but I can't believe you're not getting wings. He said, I'll get them next time. So he texted me about 20 minutes after he left, and he said he went in and he asked the folks in there, and he said, it's not a real big place.
No.
He said, I heard I should have gotten wings. He said, all of a sudden it went totally silent in there, and they're like, I didn't know they had anything else. So Dusty, he's a wing connoisseur as well.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm sure he's probably gotten some Lefty's wings by now.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your favorite flavor, though?
I like them dry, Cajun, or the dry rub that they supply on their own that they make.
I like them all, but my favorite is the Voodoo.
Ah, that's pretty good. But for some reason, Cajun keeps coming up the top
for
of my
you.
list.
All right.
Yeah.
The bad news is I live like a mile away from Lefties.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do. You live a lot closer than I do. but pretty much anything they got there in terms of wings. The other place I like is bowling alley.
Kegler's. Yes,
Yeah.
Kegler's wings are right up there
Yeah,
with me
yeah.
too. Then
Okay.
Mario's Fishbowl wings are good.
Yeah, I've been there. They're good too.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I don't know
Angela will
if
probably
we
edit this out, but
Yeah, I would not. I don't know if we should be endorsing wings, but I had to ask.
Okay. All right. Lefties, if you'd like to sponsor the Rev Rambles On, we're ready for you. We'll talk about you every week.
Okay. Hey, Larry, I appreciate your time and your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Everyone, have a great week. We look forward to the next time for the Rev Rambles On.
See you in church.